Start helping yourself.
Thank you.
I don't do behind the bar, so I'm not the quickest, but
Is the blanc blanc? 2,009 blanc blanc.
is it worth it? Yeah, I'm Annabelle. I was saying hello to John. Are you?
Now a glass of one of our sparkling wines. So I'm just going to kind of give you a bit of a background to Bolney Estate, talk to you a little bit about the wine, and then hopefully you'll, if you've got any questions at any point, just shout out. Okay, so Bolney Estate is actually one of the most established vineyards in the UK. We kind of perhaps think of English wine as being quite a modern phenomenon, but actually at Bolney we've been doing it since the early 70s. So we're about 15 miles down the road, just the other side of Hayward, so just the other side of the A23 actually. We originally planted in 1972. So Rodney is the father of Sam. Sam's our current winemaker. Set the vineyard up mainly as kind of a bit of a hobby. So him and his wife were kind of into this whole kind of market gardening type thing. So they had the chickens and the vegetables, and they were growing all their own fruit and all the rest of it. And they decided to plant a few vines, as you do. So he'd spent a bit of time in Germany and kind of picked up a bit of kind of viticultural experience over there, and started off with all of those Germanic varieties that everyone grew back in those days. So things like Müller, Thurgau, Reichensteiner, anyone? Schoenberger, all those household names. Dornfelder, we still got some Dornfelder. So that's what they started off doing, making those kind of off-dry still wines mainly. And they carried on doing that, kind of doing, just selling at local farmers markets and all the rest of it, right through until the 90s. And then Sam, his daughter, who had kind of gone off and been a hairdresser for a while and kind of pursued a different career, decided that actually she wanted to come and work at the, and kind of manage things at the vineyard and winery. So she came back into the fold, did her time at Plumpton College, kind of picked up the winemaking knowledge, and started to experiment then with things like Pinot Noir, Chardonnay, and then logical next step, experimenting with sparkling wine. So actually only probably for about the last 15-20 years or so we've been producing sparkling wine, and this particular wine is probably what you probably consider it to be our top wine. So it's 100% Chardonnay, traditional method obviously, so champagne method, aged for about 3 years on the lees. So actually quite a long time really for these sorts of things. Most champagne sort of a year and a half. 3 years on the lees, and this one is probably our most awarded wine as well. So we recently picked up a gold medal for this wine in the Champagne and Sparkling Wine World Championships. Pleased about that, and we're trying now to export to the USA. So we submitted it to a review in the Wine Enthusiast magazine, and they just sent back 94 points for that. So on a par with Krug, I should say. There you go. So yeah, enjoy, and if you've got any questions, give me a shout. Cheers.
The sugar pledge, yes. I was which they signed off. 50,843 website to Bristol. Not because of me.
Did you sign it much before me?
When she
No.
Grab on. Yeah.
So we assume that all of this is edible, right?
It's very pretty. It's useful.
10 most amazing cheese shops in the world. We opened our second shop in Hurg in 2010, and our most recent shop in Portobello Road in 2013. So we like to offer a service that is very different from other cheese shops. Coming to one of our shops, you won't leave without tasting the cheese that you buy. It's very important that people taste the cheese to make sure that it's what they're looking for and that they're going to enjoy it. We also have tasting cafes in each of our shops where you can come in, sit down, have a platter of cheese or charcuterie, a glass of wine or a bottle of wine. I've brought along with me a range of cheeses that we're going to taste, and we've paired them up with beers from Nikki from Beer Collective, and she's just going to tell you all about
Beer Collective. Yeah, indeed. Hello, I'm Nikki. Beer Collective is a sales, marketing and distribution company. There's been a big rise in the craft beer market definitely in England in the last 5 years, where we've seen a lot more breweries producing small batch, interesting, flavoursome beers, turning their backs on some of the mass-produced beers that come out of the bigger breweries. It's a really exciting time for small breweries, and the Beer Collective sources small independent breweries and markets and promotes them in London, Brighton and the South East. So it's quite a good time to actually introduce you to the beer and cheese matching, because obviously traditionally beer has always been matched with wine, but actually the hops can help give a real good palate cleanser, and I hope you're going to enjoy some of the cheeses that we've actually matched with the beers today.
So I'm just going to wander around with the cheeses. So the first cheese that I've selected is a goat's cheese. It's called Golden Cross. It's made by the Golden Cross Cheese Company, Whitesmith, just the other side of Lewes at Greenacres Farm. And they do some fantastic cheese making, predominantly goat's cheese, and then they have a used milk cheese as well called Flour Marie. This cheese, if anyone is a French cheese lover, is styled on a French cheese called Samoy du Train from the Loire Valley. So it's a goat's cheese log that's been coated in a salted charcoal and then left to develop a nice bloomy rind. When young, it's really nice and citrusy, but we like to mature cheeses for longer, so we've matured this for an extra 2 months. That gives it a denser taste. So you'll still pick up some of those citrus notes, but you'll get a very delicate nutty note right at the very end. And it's not one of those goat's cheeses that's really powerful in the goatiness, as I call it. Is in France now, who are producing their brie 100% on their farm. So the milk comes from the cattle that graze on the farm. They then take the cows to the milking parlour where they milk the cows. It then goes direct to the dairy where they make the cheese. Then they Ile de France. They then make the cheese and then put it into their maturing rooms and mature for a minimum of 28 days. Breeding room. So it's like any other classic brie that you may find in other cheese shops or supermarkets. The thing I like about this breeding mode, it's got some fantastic flavours to it. You'll get a bit of mushroom, which is very typical of the bloomy rind cheeses. That's because of the penicillin that they use when maturing the cheeses. So they'll spray or they'll smear the cheese with penicillin camemberti or penicillin candidum. And what happens then is millions of microscopic mushrooms grow on the outside of the cheese. You'll get some really nice vegetable notes in there as well. Some people tell me they can taste Brussels sprouts or cabbage. But I've also drizzled this cheese with some truffle honey. Sorry. So honey really complements certain style cheeses. And white bloomy rind cheeses and goat's cheeses really do benefit from how much gouda you made. The weight of your gouda would depend on how much tax you would have to pay. This is, as I say, it's been matured for 3 years, so it becomes a lot darker.
Does it weigh more if it's darker?
Yes, it becomes heavier and denser. And what you'll get from this is some fantastic caramel butterscotch notes. Yeah. It's I mean, this is very granular, very similar to a Parmesan.
Thank you. Thank you.
So because this is such a big bold cheese, you can use something like a pale ale or anything that's light in flavour to this. You need something with a really good malty backbone to it. That's why we've chosen the Atom beer here, which is a 5%. They're a really interesting brewery from Manchester. The brewer is absolutely crazy. He's a bad scientist as well as a brewer. And if you actually taste this with the cheese, it really does complement, as I say, it's got a really good strong malty backbone that will actually take the flavours of the aged Gouda. So a lot of people kind of wonder why that we match beer with cheese, but it actually has quite a long history, and obviously a lot of the cows that are actually fed on the grain from beer. The hops from the beer actually intensify and helps bring out the flavours of a lot of cheese as well. And the yeast in the cheese and the yeast in the beer and the bacteria in the cheese actually complement each other as well.
Are there any restaurants that you supply that really
Well,
make a major
yes, there's just, we've just actually, because the Beer Collective actually curates beer menus as well, and there's a new restaurant opening up in Fulham called Walila, and it's the first Walila, I can give you the, the spelling of that, it's the first restaurant that's actually got a full food and beer matched menu, as well as the cheese as well. And there's a really big movement in the whole food and beer matching, as well, of course, the wine.
Most modern cheeses. It was only created in 2001, so compared to some of the old classics that were produced in the 10th century, it's still a baby. It's made from ewe's milk. So ewe's milk cheeses, you'll get a sweetness coming through, because ewe's milk is a lot sweeter than cow's milk or goat's milk. It's got a really good balance on the blue veining that gives it a bit of a spiciness on the edge. Look at that. Oh my wow.
We've actually matched this
I've got
with a stout.
tasting notes, so I'll hand them out to you.
Chocolatey, it's sweet, and it should complement the blue vein cheeses. Have you got your stout
Yeah,
there?
well, it's ewe's milk, so ewe's milk is a lot whiter than
Stouts can actually be paired with chocolate, with sweet menus, which is why I thought it was really interesting to do it with the blue cheeses. This is from a brewery in London called Red Church Brewery. They're very experimental. They like to do their high ABVs. This one isn't too bad for them. It's 7.6. But obviously, with all these craft beers, they're not meant for quaffing in pints. They are meant for tasting and matching and putting in smaller glasses, not putting in pint glasses. And I just think this really works well with this blue cheese, and I'm hoping you'll agree.